Hi, everyone. My name is Priscilla Piper, and welcome to the Decision to Dance podcast. In today's episode, I will be sharing my thoughts on why taking a break from dance can actually be valuable. We'll go ahead and just get to it. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. So, before we get into the depths of this conversation, I want to go ahead and clarify I'm not telling anyone to quit. I'm not telling anyone to take a break. I'm just giving you my thoughts on this topic because one, I don't think it's talked about enough. And two, I have firsthand experience on this. So, I'm going to share with you what I have learned from my experience of taking a step back from dance and how it can actually benefit you and how it benefited me specifically. So I'm not telling anyone to quit. I would say listen to this entire episode for you to form your thoughts, and I'm just giving you a different perspective. So when I returned to dance in 2019, I was in so many classes. It took about a month for me to really dive in deep because I was extremely sore. But after about that first month, I was like all in, and I was taking so many different classes from different teachers. I couldn't get in everybody's class, but I think I had popped into almost every teacher's class at some point in time. I was just dedicated and eager to learn. But what ended up happening was I was taking so much class that I wouldn't say it's because of taking class, but it did get to a point where it felt like I didn't really know why I was doing this anymore. When I returned to dance, I was very adamant about I dance because I love it. I'm dancing because I want to become the best dancer that I can possibly be, and I want to become the dancer that I know that I have always been. And that was my goal going into this whole thing when I was returning to dance. But as I was improving, I started to lose my why because as I was making those improvements, I was surrounded by other professional dancers, and I started to question, is this what I want or not? I don't know. And it got to a point where it felt like there was a little bit of expectation from other people that, like, someone said, "Oh, I thought you were going to be at that audition." And I'm like, "Oh, like, was I supposed to be? Do I want to do that? That's what everyone else is doing, so maybe I should do that." I don't know. Like, I didn't feel confident in my decision making and why I was doing anything. And it just didn't feel authentic. I felt a bit lost. And even though I felt that pressure, I guess, from other people, it was myself that was doing it. Other people can have opinions on me, but it really shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, I should be able to distinguish what I want to do, and I couldn't. So I ended up taking what I call like another step back from dance. But the difference in this step back compared to the first time was I was still taking in information. I was still taking online classes here and there, taking notes, applying critiques, taking an intensive here and there, applying the critiques from those intensives. I just wasn't practicing consistently like I had been. I wasn't in class after class, day after day. It was very few and far between that I would get into a class, but I was still practicing and I was still improving. Actually, I would say maybe even more than I had been before, ironically enough. So, in taking that step back, I also made the conscious decision to not post dance videos on my social media accounts. I was doing that when I returned to dance because, oh, it's so cool. You have the videos. Like, I'm going to show people what I'm doing. But it really felt like I got to a place where I was doing this because everyone else around me was doing it. So then it just didn't feel authentic anymore. And I also was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? This doesn't feel like it's coming from a place of good anymore, I guess. And I was just like, I'm not posting a single dance video until I have a better reason as to why I'm posting. So I also, when I took that step back, I also stopped posting dance videos, which was fine because I didn't have many to post anyway. So, this decision that I made was intentional. And I knew actually that this was going to be a road less traveled. If you were trying to improve as a dancer, it's not often that people make a conscious decision to take a step back when their goals are to improve and continue dancing. Like that doesn't usually line up, right? But I knew for me and where I was at mentally, I needed to make a change and I needed to get clear in my head. So I was conscious that this was not a normal decision that people make. I wasn't quitting dance, I wasn't cutting it out. I was just taking a step back and almost observing things from like a bird's eye view, I guess, just from a different perspective than constantly being in class over and over, like doing the same thing over and over again, basically. And maybe more people do this than I realize. I'm not sure, but it's not really a common practice. But I did this on purpose. I knew in the short term, it was going to look like I was doing nothing. It was going to look like I wasn't doing anything cool or fun. Didn't have dance videos to post, really. Definitely not like official class videos. And it looked like I was maybe taking steps back or falling behind. But I knew in my head that this was actually what I needed to do to, ironically enough, help me advance because I was not in a good headspace. I really wasn't. And so I knew I felt like I needed to take a step back, distance myself a bit to clear my head and have a better view on things, have a better reasoning to do things. And so this decision was not made lightly, that's for sure. It was very hard, but I knew in the long run it was going to help me. And the way I see it is that I've just been getting like a winding up start. You know, like in baseball, the wind up. Like you got to wind up before you throw that ball. Or also just taking a few steps back to launch forward. That's what this process has been for me that I don't think enough people talk about or almost anybody talks about. You don't really see people in dance talk about, hey, take that break. You know, it might help you. That's never really said. And there's something to be said for that, right? When you take a step back, you're not being consistent, you're not moving your body the way that you were. It's going to take you a bit to get back into it, and it's going to be harder. Like the longer break you have, the harder it is to return physically. So you have to keep that in mind, which means you should also be intentional if you are doing something like this, intentional about how much time you take away from it, and that is totally up to you. But another piece of this that I also don't feel like we talk enough about is that sometimes it's not a decision we want to make. Sometimes we're not put in a position where we have the privilege to make that decision. Sometimes life gets in the way, circumstances change, and we can no longer practice and dance the way that we used to. So just pick a circumstance. Maybe you have a child and that changes everything for you. Maybe you become a caretaker. Maybe your spouse gets another job and is transferred to another state where they don't have barely any dance classes. Maybe you get injured. I mean, that's a common one, of course. But things happen. And I think as dancers, we always see something like this as a setback, as taking steps back, as falling behind. And I'm here to challenge you if that occurs to you, either now or in the future, because you just never know. I would see that as an opportunity to continue in your process and that it will give you a point of view that you didn't have before, which I think is something that not everybody taps into. That can be extremely helpful. The pro now is that there are the most amount of resources ever available right now online and in person, but online, oh my gosh, it's insane what's available. These on demand classes, live classes, educational classes, foundational classes. It's crazy. And I haven't honestly done that much research, and I know enough just from being online and talking to other people how much is out there. So, even if you are put in a circumstance where you are unable to take class, there is still information online. And if you can't practice it, you can read about it. Like there are just so many more resources than we've ever had before. So that's exciting that if something were to happen now, it's a very different time than we were living in even just 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So, with that being said, I want to share with you what I have gained from taking this step back from dance to show you how it has worked to my advantage. Okay, so the first thing is that it has allowed me to gain confidence and focus on myself. I've been able to not compare myself to other people. When you're in class and you're surrounded by so many other people, it's so easy to compare. So easy. And I've actually already done an episode on comparison, but it's hard to break those negative thought patterns if you are in a cycle of constantly comparing yourself to everybody around you in a negative way, in an unhelpful way. There's a way to do that that's helpful, which I talk about in that previous episode. But if you're doing it in a negative way that's harming you psychologically, it's not gonna help you. It's gonna actually most likely make you a worse dancer. Let's be honest. So because I haven't been in class that often, I've been able to change these negative thought patterns. I've been able to get out of the habit of constantly comparing myself to the person next to me. Oh, are they dancing better than me? Are they wearing a cooler outfit than I am? Are they picking up the choreography faster than I am? Oh my gosh, that teacher's looking at me. What are they thinking? The list goes on, and if you are a dancer, you know exactly what I'm talking about because these are the thoughts that we have second after second after second in class. And it can get really really negative in here. And that's just not good for anybody. So it's allowed me to get to a place of self-confidence. So when I get into a class in person and there's all these other people, I am so incredibly good. It's honestly crazy. Like I never thought I would be able to get to a place like that. But if they call out everybody else to be filmed except for me, sure, I'll not love that, but I'm not going to be that upset about it. I'm going to assess what maybe should have happened or if I'm okay with that or if I'm not okay with that and decide if I want to return to that class or go to a different class. Like I'm really not that upset about things that I used to be upset about. It's so it's so crazy. Like I actually admire dancers more than I did before. Like when I am looking at all the dancers getting called out and I'm not getting called out, I'm like, "Ooh, like I like what they did there. I like how they're doing this." And I'm like admiring these people's work ethic and adrenaline and whatever else I'm seeing. But in my head, I'm also thinking, like, I know I can do that. Like, I'm just not there yet, but I know in the future I can do that. And then it makes me excited to keep working and keep trying and showing up again. And another piece of that is I'm not dancing consistently. So, like, if I'm not killing it in a class, well, duh, because I'm not in class consistently. So, like, I know, honestly, when I'm in class, I'm like at a 1 out of 10, because I'm not in it often enough. So, it's not really fair for me to even be hard on myself. But I've broken those thought patterns. Like, I'm extremely confident about that. And it's really, really nice to walk into a class and not be phased if things happen in a class that's not really something that I want to happen, but I'm not going to be bothered by it. I'm going to assess the situation and decide how I want to move forward, and that's it. So by changing my environment, that's basically what happened here. Changing my environment, also working on myself personally, but changing my environment really allowed me to like recalibrate things in my head, rewire things, and it's allowed me to think a lot more positively of myself. So that is definitely a huge pro by just changing your atmosphere temporarily. In this process, I also realized that other people want to see my dance videos on Instagram. I actually had a moment a few years ago. I was taking an online class, and I had a teacher tell me after watching me saying I would post that. Like, if I were you, I would post that dance video. And it really took me aback because I was like, oh, like other people actually like what I'm doing and I should post videos. Huh. I didn't really know if people were liking my stuff. And which in hindsight, I'm like, people were liking it. Like, what are you talking about? But I genuinely was like, not really sure. So then I started to post again, and my purpose has been to like inspire and to entertain and to show my love and passion for dance and my process and what I've learned, which isn't really anything different from what I was doing before, but it's coming from a more genuine place of like, look at this thing I'm really proud of, and I can continue posting coming from that frame of mind. And I have a very clear idea of what my why is, what my purpose is, and what my goals are. And what I've learned, so when I returned, my intention or my goal was to, again, become the best dancer that I can possibly be and become the dancer that I knew that I always was. And what I mean by that is I had a lot of like barriers for a number of years. So I've been like working through those barriers since then. And for a long, long time, even since I was maybe like 10 years old, 11 years old, I have kind of felt like I'm not able to show up in the way that I know that I can. And so I've been just working towards that. So now I know that is still my goal. That is still my number one reason why I do this. I obviously love it, but that those are my goals. And in addition to that, I also genuinely love the process of learning and growing as a dancer. That I've come to terms with is my authentic state. That is how I live an optimal life is when I'm doing that. And it took me like a while to get to that place, and I had to think about it a lot because I always knew I was like that, but I was trying to like figure out where that started and why I've been that way. And honestly, like I watched a dance video of me at 3 years old in a ballet class, or I don't know if I'd call it ballet. But there's a video of me and I'm like doing a passe with my arms like straight out and the passe is like up high. And I remember in that class at 3 years old thinking to myself, oh, if I put my foot on my standing leg, I can keep my passe connected to my leg. Which obviously is cheating if you if you know anything about a passe. But I remember being like, oh, like I got my passe up high because I can put my foot on my other leg. And so when I watched that, I'm like, this girl, this girl has always loved trying to be the best dancer that she can possibly be. Learning and and growing as a dancer has always brought her joy. So I've come to terms with this is always my foundation. This is always what's going to lead me to do anything in regards to dance. I can have other sub goals, but that umbrella is always going to be my North Star. It's going to be my compass that leads me forward. And I'm not ashamed of that. And I feel like I used to be. Because when I was in that in between stage of like, do I want to do this professionally? Do I not? I don't know. Like, I'm improving, so obviously I could do this, but maybe I'm not ready. Like, just all of these things. And then it started to feel weird to say, oh, well, I dance because I want to learn and I want to grow. Usually like the response is like, are you a pro dancer? Raise your hand. Are you a hobbyist? Raise your hand. And it's like, well, what do I say to that? I don't know, because all I know is that I want to continue to learn and grow as a dancer. So I don't know where I fit in here. I just want to keep learning. That's something that I just didn't feel comfortable saying anymore. I wasn't confident in that. But now I know that that is who I am. Like that sentence right there, honestly, I feel like kind of sums me up in one sentence. That is what I love more than anything. And I'm not making that up. Like I'm not faking that. It's literally just it feels like it's in my heart and in my body. Like I just can't explain it. I've always been this way. So now, no matter what I do moving forward, I'm always going to have that goal of learning and growing as much as I can as a dancer. That's always going to be that thing that keeps me going. So I can be a professional dancer with that top goal in mind of I want to learn, I want to grow. Okay? So what does that mean? What's the next step? Maybe the next step means I pursue a dance career. Or maybe that means I step into a style that I haven't stepped into, but I've always wanted to do. I'm going to buy that class online that I've been thinking about doing and do it. I'm going to practice the skills, like that can look in different ways. But no matter what I do, I always want to learn and grow. So I would not have gotten to this place if I didn't take this step back. I really just don't see how I could have gotten to this place mentally if I was dancing consistently and not changing my mindset and my thought patterns. There's definitely a way to do that. So I'm not going to dismiss that and say that you can't do that, because you definitely can. It just takes the conscious effort and continuous effort to change that and to shift your perspective and be aware of your why. Like, this is why I named this podcast the Decision to Dance podcast, because when you know your why, it makes everything easier. It just gives you the answer to everything. Like, I swear, ask a question and it's like, well, do you know your why? That's going to help you figure it out. It really does. So I'm sharing with you the positives that I have experienced from taking a step back. This is my own experience. It doesn't have to be anybody else's experience, but I just want to share that this actually can be helpful and it can work to your advantage if you let it, if you allow it to. And I think for some people listening who don't know me at all, who haven't followed any of my stuff over the last few years, if you're new here, which some of you are, which is pretty crazy, hello if you are new. I hope you are enjoying. But if you're new and you're like, well, Priscilla, I don't know anything about you, like, how can I believe you? How can I believe you that you've actually made these changes and it's actually making a difference in your life? How can I actually trust you that taking a step back could be helpful? And the first thing I'll say to that is, if you look back, which I don't have a lot on my social media now, but if you look back at me in 2019 when I returned to dance and you look at me now, just in terms of my dancing, there's a significant difference. But also in here, you can tell there's a significant difference. Just even in a video, you can see that pretty clearly. I would say you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe me, like you can take this with a grain of salt and just move on if you don't agree. Or you could trust what I have to say because I feel like this experience has made actually a very positive impact on me. I'm not saying it's been easy, but it's been such a positive experience overall, which is why I'm sharing it because I'm like, this actually could, I think, help some people. And sometimes that means taking one less class a week because you're just like overdoing it. Or that could mean take a couple days off so that you can go on vacation with your friends. Or that could mean taking more time off if you feel like you need that time off to like recover. And what I said earlier about you have to keep in mind how that will impact you physically. I'm talking a lot about the mental benefits of that, not really talking that much about the physical, even though I could actually get into that if I wanted to, but you have to consider that. But as far as the mental piece of this goes, it's done a lot for me. And the best part is that because I trusted myself in this process, at the beginning when I was like really questioning it, I was like, I don't know if this is good, even though I feel like this is what I need to do, but like this is not what anybody else in my shoes would have done. Because I'm now on the other side of it, I'm like, I knew what I was talking about. I knew. And so that is like another example of how I'm able to build self-confidence because I trusted myself and I knew what I was doing and I'm coming out of this what feels like not a new person, but like a more authentic state, which is all I've ever wanted in this process of returning to dance. And none of this may apply to you now. It could, but we don't know what the future holds for any of us. So it may be something that you need to take note of for the future or for somebody else that you know. So again, I'm not saying to stop or to quit, but I think it's important to share how this can actually be helpful if you allow it to be helpful. If you are intentional about what you are doing, taking a break, taking a step back can actually help you as a dancer. So, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. I think clearly I'm very passionate about this, and I'm very thankful to have had this experience of taking some time away, but being very intentional about what I've been doing to grow as a person and therefore as a dancer. So, thank you for listening. Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate you all for being here, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. I will see you all in the next episode.